Welcome to this episode of Unearth Horticulture. Today we are going to go through my houseplant collection. I'm going to take you through my weekly chores, my weekly rounds, so that you can see how a horticulturist, how a greenhouse grower takes care of her houseplants. You may be surprised, you may be shocked, but nonetheless, here we go. Let's talk about what you actually need to check on a weekly basis with your houseplant. Now, I know a lot of times we are sold plants like snake plants with the idea that you're only going to have to check on them once a month. But if you really want to be a good houseplant caretaker and stay on top of your plant's health, even those plants that you may only be adding water to once a month, those plants you still may want to check on a weekly basis. It's good to just get in a routine of checking all your plants weekly, no matter how often you're adding moisture. But that brings me to the first thing that you do in your weekly checks, and that is moisture checks. So what I do when I check for moisture, I recommend either with a moisture meter or your finger, depends on what you're comfortable with. Stick it into the potting mix, at least down to the second knuckle. You really want to feel for moisture in proportion to the depth of your container. So if you've got a really deep pot, like a 30-inch wide pot with your Monstera in it, really filling 2 inches isn't going to cut it, but it's a good start. So feeling that surface level potting mix moisture is going to help give you an idea of if it's still really soggy, still really wet, or if you may need to check the next level, which is feeling by weight. I also recommend feeling your containers by weight to determine how much moisture is still in the pot, because go figure, water weighs something. And so your plants are going to feel heavier when they're wet than when they are dry. So what I do is I always recommend feeling by touch and or with your moisture meter, and also by weight. Having that double check is gonna make sure that you feel really confident in adding moisture or not. So I do that with all my plants every week. The next thing I check on a weekly basis when I'm doing my moisture checks, I also look for pests, any creepers or crawlers, or any symptoms or signs of pests. So that could include holes in the leaves or freckles and speckles. If there's spider mites, they're only going to be putting these little yellow dots all over your leaves. What you want to look for is concentrated locations of the damage, because if it's widespread damage across the plant, then that could indicate more of an environmental issue or concern. You're wanting to look in soft areas of the plant, like the new growth, leaf backs along that midrib of the leaf, because that's where a lot of the sap is concentrated, where plants are searching for that sugary sap. And those are the areas you want to check for bugs, mealybugs, spider mites, thrips. I know everyone's really obsessed with fungus gnats because they're really annoying, but they are the least of your concerns where plant pests are concerned. But if you do have fungus gnats, I have a short video linked below that you can remedy those gnats with. But anyways, so the second thing I'm checking on a weekly basis is just looking for pests, because the sooner you catch them, the easier it is going to be to get rid of them. So pests. The third thing I'm looking for is foliar damage or foliar loss, like foliage leaf loss. That's the same thing, whatever. Leaf loss, I'm looking for leaf loss. If your plant is showing leaf tip burn or margin burn, which is edge burn, if the top growth is showing damage or the bottom growth is showing damage, I'm looking if there's more leaves being lost than are being grown on the top of the plant, then those are the things that start to indicate there might be something else going on with its environment, with pests, with light level, all those things, and it makes me think that's a red flag. I need to check root health, which is optional number 4. The last thing that I consider checking on a weekly basis, depending on whether the leaves are telling me to or not, is root health. And it's kind of like dumping a sandcastle. You know, you gently turn the plant over and get the pot, shuffle the pot off, and you look for root firmness, like root texture, root presence, and root color. Sometimes even unhealthy roots can smell bad, but whenever someone submits a question to me and they're showing me leaf issues or leaf loss issues, I always ask them next to check root health. So you can save me the time of asking you that question by simply doing it yourself. So the 4 things that I'm checking on a weekly basis on all of my houseplants: 1, moisture level; 2, pests or pest signs; 3 is foliar symptoms; and 4 is optional, and that is root health. So those are all things I'm checking on a weekly basis, and I recommend that you do the same. Now, doing this with 2 plants may not be very time consuming, but doing this with 300 plants takes some time. So consider that when you are adding plants to your collection. Do you have time for this? Because it gets more time consuming the more plants you have. Now, you're also the more experience you have, the quicker you're gonna get at this process, because it takes me, I have about 60 plants in my house, and it takes me about 30 minutes to do this every week. So keep that time constraint in the back of your mind when you are thinking about having a houseplant collection.